and I can get it to you. So it is now recording, or at least it says it is. Fingers crossed. If you need to leave at any point, not a problem. You can shoot me a message or you can just drop off, whichever would be easier for you. And this is pretty much going to be an open discussion for all of us to just kind of chat about our major incident and major incident review processes. It could be, if you have a difficulty, maybe another one of the universities are doing something that can help out your situation or your process. I'm also taking notes for this meeting, which I was planning on sending out to the guest list, so to speak, for the invite afterwards. So what I can do, I can get the notes sent out as well as the meeting recording when that finishes. So any questions about that? All right.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Yes. Mitch, you posted a site's Google page?
Yeah, that's where we keep all the archive of all our events. So
Okay.
yeah, and it's lots of past recordings. There may be something in there about incident, major incident. So just making it available for the group's knowledge if they didn't know this already existed.
I did not, so I'm glad you shared that. Let me, let's see, let's do, paste that there. There we go. Past meeting recordings. Might help if I could type today, but All right, there we go. So I figure what we can do here is do like a brief introduction rundown. I just listed everybody. I listed them as I was going through to see who accepted. So it's not in any particular order besides who accepted and when they did. So of course, I'm Jessie Duhon. I am from Penn State. I am actually the incident and knowledge manager. I also own the major incident process. So that is who I am. Ryan, since you don't have video, I'll let you know that you are up next.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Weller. I'm the Director for Enterprise Support Services here, also at Penn State. My group is responsible for kind of executing on the process that Jessie owns. So, we sort of have, sort of a vested interest in seeing how others do it and trying to learn where we can. So, thanks for having me.
Hi, folks. I'm Steve Welstrantz. I'm the interim operations manager here for the service management office at Penn State. I'm very fortunate to work with Jessie, who is a rock star when it comes to handling major incidents. And we have a great team of folks here involved in the process. I really just, my goal is to help keep things moving and to clear roadblocks and help just let the team do what it is they do best.
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry Koba. I'm the ServiceNow system architect on one of the instances that we have at Berkeley. We actually have two, because if we can do things more complicated, we will. That's our motto. And so I was involved in spinning up the original major incident with a whole bunch of really wonderful people. Shout out to Sally Baker, who is the head of the service desk, and Rich Meyer, who was the ITSM product owner at that time.
Hey folks, I'm Max Treboni from The Ohio State University. I'm Director of Service Operations here, which includes overseeing our service desk and desktop support teams, but I also have the role of incident management process owner. And like Terry, I was involved in our initial ServiceNow instance and ITIL incident management adoption process when we first stood things up, and have been very closely involved with the process since.
Hello, I'm Joyce Landreth from Virginia Tech. We rolled our own major incident process before the major incident module, and now we want to move to the major incident module in ServiceNow. We have an extremely complex, ridiculously bloated process that needs to be simplified and moved into the major incident module in ServiceNow. Luke, who is also with me, I'm the owner of our major IT service issue process, and he's actually the manager of that process. And he basically runs our support organization. He's the, what's your title, Luke? I'll let you introduce yourself.
My title is the Associate Director of IT Support. And yeah, like Joyce said, I guess I'm primarily responsible for managing the major incident process and all of the other incident stuff at Virginia Tech. And we've had a major incident process, like Joyce said, for a while, but it needs updating.
Guess that's me. Mitch Pouts, most of you probably know who I am. I've got my fingers in a lot of pies. By the way, it's great to see you, Terry. Terry's, if you don't need to know anything about telecom, their processes, she's a great gal to talk to. Been very, very helpful in the past. So thank you, Terry. Just want to make a shout out for you.
Thank you.
I run with Todd Jensen, the IT service management community group. This is great that you put this together, Jesse. So I'm glad that we've got some folks on the line. As far as what I do at USC, 50% of my job is adoption training, OCM. So, that's really, it takes up a bulk of what I'm doing. And if any of you have tried to change the culture and do some training around ITIL and ITSM, it's very challenging. So I get that fun every day. And also I manage this process manager for catalog and request. So I really get to enjoy working with the customer facing processes, work a lot with the service desk as well. As far as the major incident process, we implemented not too long ago kind of an interim process. So we require a major incident review after every major incident. We're going to be spinning up a formal or problem management process, hopefully leveraging the problem management application ServiceNow. I've been told to not use it until you get to Paris. So I think we're going to upgrade to Paris first before we implement it. And then as part of that, then we're going to require, as part of the process flow, a major incident review. I don't think we're going to be taking advantage of the major incident application. I have used it in former organizations where I used outage record and all that good stuff. But yeah, just interesting to kind of learn from you all. Our major incident manager, she couldn't be here today. So hopefully get that recording to her. And we also recently outsourced to an MSP for our NOC, and they do a lot of the handling of any of the major incidents. So if any of you have experience working with managed service providers and outsourcing your major incident process, be interesting to kind of chat about that a little bit.
Okay, it looks like we also have two more. Kim?
Hello. Yes, I'm Kim King from University of Riverside. I'm the Associate Director of our Service Management team. And I've actually been at UCR for about a year now, and I've been tasked to come up with an ITSM roadmap for our organization. And so one of the things that we're doing, we just went through an assessment for our incident management process and major incident process. And now we have not rolled out the major incident module yet in ServiceNow, but we wanted to take a step back first and just improve the actual processes first, make sure we have a standard process for the organization, make sure we communicate that across the organization. And then we're looking to enhance our incident management within the ServiceNow, and then also implement the major incident process within ServiceNow.
Sounds good. All right, and Kevin, you are up.
My name is Kevin Davis. I'm with Virginia Tech. I work with Luke and Joyce as well. I am the team lead for the ServiceNow administration group. So we purchased ServiceNow about 6 years ago. And my team's been responsible with setting up all of the applications and doing all the daily maintenance upgrades and things.
Well, thank you. All right, it looks like Taj isn't here, and I know there was an email sent that they wouldn't be able to come in possibly, so we'll go ahead and continue on. In the original email that I had sent out, I know a few of you did respond to what you do with your processes now. So to help with that, I kind of did a copy and paste from all the emails that were sent out responding to my original questions. So I figured if we wanted, we can run through that. And then for anyone that didn't respond that would like to share their information as well, I'd love to get your feedback. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and go first since I was the one that sent out the request to begin with. So our operations center, which is 11 staff, a manager and then a manager above the manager, they provide the 24/7, 365 support. They are the ones that actually run the major incident process. I am the one that actually owns the major incident process. Our OC actually took over the running of it a little over a year ago now, because let's be real, it was, it was a little bit running ragged, especially when you get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning and still have to come in at 7:30. So that is something we did to help the process, especially with them being 365 support. For the MI process and the MIRs, our OC, of course, runs the MI process, but I am the one that does major incident reviews. So I take the notes and information that had been taken down during the major incident itself to create the reports and complete the MIRs, as well as scheduling the meetings and getting all the technical people together to do everything and getting the information submitted to our senior staff and leadership. I do, of course, invite the OC staff that had been involved to, of course, attend the meeting. So we do actually have multiple major incidents occur at the same time. I don't want to say very frequently, but it normally occurs during our semester starts. We do have one Zoom room that is by default the room for all major incidents. We call it major.incident. That way it's easier to remember. People know to go to their launcher, just type in major.incident, boom, they're in. When we do have multiple issues, if they're related to one cause, so like let's say we have a network issue, which of course is impacting all these other systems, what we'll do is we'll have everyone in the same room trying to figure out like, okay, if we fix this part of the network, what fixes it with our other services that are impacted. If we have multiple issues that are not related, however, we still use the major.incident Zoom room, but we use the breakout rooms. That way we're still all one area. It's still all being recorded. It's just, it allows some flexibility in case multiple technical staff are involved with multiple services. As far as difficulties that we experience, we have a standard process. It is a 36-page playbook. It's step-by-step procedures for everything, from the major incident process itself, going from, hey, you receive a call, what do you do, things like that, but as well as the sub-processes such as how to create the IT alert, updating the alert, and things like that. We do have like a one-page cheat sheet for our OC staff to use that doesn't include all the step-by-steps. It just says, hey, make sure you do X, Y, Z. Maybe our process is too intensive or overwhelming, I'm not sure, but that's what our information is. So I'll scroll here to the next one. Don't get seasick on me. I don't see Nick with us, but so I won't take time on his information. But like I said, after the meeting, I'll send these notes out so everyone will have them. Go ahead, keep scrolling. Looks like Taj responded, but is not here. Which then, Max, you're up. Would you like to share your information?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think one thing just from seeing some of the other responses is, and I touch on it, but I think we may be a little more picky about what's considered a major incident and what gets driven up to that, highest level of priority and run as a major incident. But yeah, as the Incident management process owner. I do run the process for the majority of our P1s or major incidents. If I'm not available, I'm out or whatever, then I've got a couple managers on my team that will step in as backups, but I run the majority of them. So, as you mentioned, you used to be Jesse, I'm kind of, that always on call situation. Yeah, I am the process owner. I also do run the MIRs, or we call them PIRs, post incident reviews. I do run those as well. Like I said, maybe because we're a little more picky, I'm not sure, but there's only been a couple times that I can recall where we've had 2 major incidents going on at once that were not directly related. So, I mean, it's definitely not uncommon to have major incidents that are sort of spawned after each other. Like, well, you've got a core network outage, so of course all your stuff on the core network is also down. But there's only been a couple times I can think of where they wound up being not directly related. And even then, I think in both of those cases there was sort of a, well, this thing caused it, even though it wasn't the direct or tied together thing. It was sort of splash damage. Difficulties, the biggest one has been vendor related. When we've had major incidents driven by cloud outages where we have calls and we kind of update everybody on the status, but otherwise our process is a lot of no news from the vendor yet. So, it feels a lot less productive than when we've actually got interior technical teams that are able to work on an issue and make progress. Instead, it's like, talk to our Microsoft rep, take a look at the Microsoft status page, no news. We also, have a lot of issues with, especially kind of some of those data center stuff, where we're in that initial discovery period of trying to figure out what exactly the scope of an outage is. And so there tends to be a lot of sort of discussion or differences of opinion back and forth between, well, why isn't this a major incident? Like, well, I don't know. Can you tell me what the scope is? I don't know. I'm down. Okay, well, that's great that you're down, but we're trying to figure out if it's everybody at the university, if it's just people in this building. We're still trying to figure that out. And so, there's kind of a rush at times to declare a major incident, and oftentimes it's while we're still trying to get information and understand the scope to begin with. And then, of course, we also have some service owners that feel like, well, my service is down, so this should be a major incident. And like, I'm sorry, the Muzak service that pipes in to the elevators and lobbies on campus isn't a major incident. It's not impacting university business. And so, having that discussion with folks and trying to explain why this being completely down is different than your thing being completely down. And then, the last one I put was, I'm sure there's always an issue of folks where, you have a major incident review or post-incident review, and the root cause isn't found. So, what do you do at that point? At some point, if it was apparently a one-off or an unusual situation, you can't really waste more cycles, trying to get to that point and just when to call it, and more so just to explain to leadership, well, this is why we don't have a root cause identified from this PIR.
I was going to say, I do agree with a lot of the items that you have listed under your difficulties, because we have had those as well here at Penn State, especially with the things, like you said, the unknowns. We said that to leadership, and it's like, well, how much time do you want us to focus on trying to figure out what exactly this is? So
yeah, it's
not the only one.
Another kind of related funny piece is we'll also often hear from the distributed IT community on campus about, like, well, why don't you have any notices up on your status page about this outage? It's like, well, because it literally just happened 5 minutes ago, and we're trying to get a sense of what's even going on so that we can put something there for you.
Yep, that's definitely a thing. All right, thanks, Max. Terry, are you okay to share?
I am. Or no, you can share. I'm just yeah. So you have the screen, and so that link there is our major incident process, and so you folks can take a look at that. And then I'm also putting something into our Zoom chat, which is our link to our priority matrix. Like Max, we also have disagreements on what should be a major incident. The way we settle those disagreements is if you have to ask, it probably is. And so what we do is ours is a little different than your folks in the sense that we don't have one owner of the major incident process. We have every service provider whose service can go down. When it's a major incident, they own that. And so there's a series of training about, what does owning it mean? But it's been really fantastic because it's taken it out of, Jesse, you were saying that there was a little stressful to be involved in every major incident. And the way that we have it distributed, that we don't have that. Of course, we have our service desk who is involved in everything. And, we do have people who are involved, but the owner really is the service provider. So if the major incident is involved with storage, they own it. If the major incident is a network issue, they own it. And then the way that we do that is the person who is fixing the problem is not the owner of the major incident because we want them to focus on fixing the problem. So it's usually their manager. So the role of, and this gets, the playbook it talks about this, the role of the person who owns the major incident, whatever that the event is mostly just communication. You have to update the major incident every X period of time. And the really nice thing about ServiceNow is if you have your major incident and then you have like 150 child incidents on that, all you have to do is update the major incident and it will automatically update all the children. So that really enhances our ability to communicate with everybody who has said, hey, I'm seeing this problem. And then they get communications all the time, very quickly. And the major incident manager only had put that into the major incident. So it's not a ton of work, but it actually updates then everybody who has submitted an incident related to that. So that's been super useful for us. The other thing that we have in our process is we have ServiceNow for the major incident, but we also have a Slack channel for active issues. And the combination of those two works really, really well. So usually we'll have something on Slack saying, hey, we're noticing a problem with the storage. And somebody else will say, oh yeah, me too. And the moment that happens, we know that it's not just one person. And then we say, okay, that's probably a candidate for a major incident. And so, it's just that Slack channel allows us to have a conversation around the major incident. And then when we do decide it's a major incident, then we usually spin up a separate Slack channel just for that major incident. And then people who want to be involved in that can just join that Slack channel. The active issues Slack channel has like almost 480 some people on it. And so you want to keep the chatter on that one a little low because it does go to a lot of people. And then the way we spun this up is we said ServiceNow has a major incident module. Let's not try and develop a business process that's outside of that. Let's use the out-of-box module as much as we can. And then after we start using it, and once we have our business process built, then we'll see if we need to tweak it. And that allowed us to spin it up really quickly. It was a very light process. And to tell you the truth, it's bang on for the most part. We did very few customizations on it. And it's actually working really, really well. We're spinning up problem in November, and then we'll be able to link our major incidents to the problem. And that's where we will be recording officially our root cause analysis. Right now, what we do is after we have a major incident, we have a change board that meets every Tuesday. And that board is where we talk about the root cause of the major incident from the week before. But now we're going to be rolling that into the problem management module in ServiceNow. And we're doing it the same way. We're spinning up problem. We're going to use the software as it is. figure out our business process, going through the module for our exercise, and then figure out whether or not we want to tweak the system or tweak the process or how we want to manage that. Any questions from anybody? I need to leave in 5 minutes, so if you have any questions.
I was gonna say the only question I have is because we use the major incident module in ServiceNow as well. And with its built-in PIR option on a major incident, does that actually collect all the information you need, or is it in your process to write down all that information that you would actually need in there?
I would say it's a hit and miss on that. We have some people who are more verbose than others. So sometimes our service desk manager or our change board manager, they have to chase after the owners of the major incident, say, hey, we need you at this meeting to talk about what happened. But for the most part, the people who are the owner of that major incident when it happens, once you've gone through one of them, you kind of get a sense of what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's as far as the reminders are needed.
Okay.
And then that's part of the fantastic aspect of it is that it makes the service provider really own their service.
Yeah.
And it's just been wonderful to see, you know, people really step up and they say, yep, I own it, and they'll talk about what happened, and they'll talk about what they're going to do to prevent it from happening the next time, and those types of things. Yeah.
Hey, Terry, when you mentioned, when you're using the word service provider, are you talking about the IT department that actual owns that service, like the technical service owner?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
If it's like, for example, the network or storage. But let's say it's something like our Berkeley financial system. That one is actually the functional owner there gets involved very quickly on that because it's more broad-based. You have to, let's say it was the Berkeley financial system goes down right before the month-end process runs. You know, there's a whole bunch of escalations that on the functional side, you have to tell folks, hey, your information is going to be delayed, our business process isn't going to happen on time, and that kind of stuff. And so if it's a real technical thing, then the service provider is the technical service provider is the major incident owner. But if it's something like like I said, you know, something that's more wide ranging, then it's the major incident owner is still the technical person, but they loop in the functional owner. And then that functional owner is responsible for all of the communication about what is the implication of that system being down. Good question.
Like a Workday or SAP, then you might have the technical owner and the functional owner that may be outside, like HR or something like that.
Yep.
Okay, very cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question. Anything else from anybody? So I apologize, but I do have a overlapping meeting here. So thanks for letting me come in and talk about our major incident process.
Thank you for joining us, Terry.
I look forward to watching the recording. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Terry.
Okay, so let's go ahead and continue here. As far as I know, the next part was like an open discussion aspect, but is there anyone else that would like to share their area's information regarding how they use and run major incident?
Yeah, real quick, Jesse, I asked our major incident process manager to complete the questions, and I'll send them to you if you want to be able, if you have a chance to add those to the list. Like I said, I'm not really intimate involved. I can answer some basic questions, but she's more involved with the process.
Not a problem. I was going to say, you can send those to me and I'll include them in here in the little section that I just put in there for you. Okay. All right. Now, as far as an open discussion goes, I heard a few folks did mention using, ServiceNow. What other tools are people using as far as incident management goes?
I'll add on. I have not actually seen ServiceNow's major incident tool, so I'll have to look into that because that sounds pretty neat. But I'll add on. Yes, it is still within ServiceNow, but a piece that we use is we use the RCA module for our post-incident review process. So not only to capture and document it all, but with the kind of out of the box questions in there to work through.
I might have to look into that because
Yeah, didn't even know that was a thing, Max. Thanks. Hey, by the
Yeah.
way, completely off topic. Did you know Bob Gribben?
I did. He was my previous boss and the previous person in this role.
Okay. Yeah, just curious. Yeah.
Yep.
So we use Slack a lot, but one of the struggles with trying to move to the major incident module from our homegrown kind of using problem to manage major incidents, I was really hoping that there was someone who had used some of the built-in templates in the major incident module for communications. Has anybody done that?
we were actually testing through some of that at Penn State, and then we decided for what we needed. We actually formed our own template as far as communications go. But we did look into it, but I can't say we actually actively use it.
We have our own comm scripts and a comm matrix to help inform who we're communicating with, when we're communicating with, and all that stuff. So nothing from ServiceNow, just through those templates and then through Blackboard Connect to communicate out. So texting, Slack messages, and other means to communicate out, email.
Yeah, we also have a whole communication matrix around major incidents that says, what's the audience and who's responsible for communicating to that audience.
Would people be willing to share links to those?
I can send them, but I don't have them published anywhere, publicly accessible, but I'm happy to send them out.
Yeah, me too, Joyce. Let me get permission first. And if so, then I'll make sure that this group gets a copy. And we can include that like in a resource section, Jesse, and I can have that linked in the Google or into the wiki as well. There's a section for adding docs. So completely up to you, but just an option.
No, that would be awesome because then we can just reference that data point instead of trying to
single source, right?
Send all the information everywhere.
Yeah, happy to help.
Thank you. All right, so we have the comms and the tools. What else? I'm trying to think the best way to ask it. So is there anyone else that has a specific question regarding major incident or major incident reviews while I'm thinking of how to ask my question?
Well, if I can add, Jesse, so some other tools around Toolbase. We use, sorry, you're probably hearing my dog in the background with a squeaky toy. We use Ops Genie and SolarWinds to generate major generate incidents, right? Depending on the criticality of the CI, it'll open up the appropriate incident type, assign it to the right group. We also use Ops Genie to alert the right staff for hierarchical and functional escalation.
Is anyone using the since the SMS function from within ServiceNow? Right now, you can subscribe to outages, as we use the outage module to post outages, and we give folks the ability to sign up to get an SMS for specific types of outages. Is anyone else using that?
We are using both the outage module for posting. That's what our system status page is driven from, our outage records. So we are using the outage module and do allow notification subscriptions to that. Published externally for customers, it's most obvious that you can just subscribe with an email address, but folks can always go into their personal notifications in our self-service to set up an SMS notification to subscribe with instead. And then we also use SMS notifications when priority 1 or priority 2 incidents are submitted into the system to ping certain folks so that, for example, before anything is considered a major incident, when a priority 1 incident is submitted in the system, it pings myself and a few other folks to take a look and go, okay, is this legit or is somebody just getting a little trigger happy?
I was gonna say at Penn State, we use like the outage module in addition to major incident and things like that. We have it set up that our technical staff, anyone with an idle role within ServiceNow, they can sign up for text notifications, which are, of course, SMS. Anyone with an active actual access account, which is our authentication for students, faculty, staff, and everything. Anyone with an email address, an active account, they can sign up for email notifications for their favorite services or the ones that they use from our service portal, which is where everything links back to as far as viewability of current issues, statuses, things like that. So we do have both of those options. And we also have it set so that our technical teams, they can sign up for SMS messages if, if there's a high priority issue that gets assigned to them, or if they feel froggy, technically they could do that for this single thing that's assigned to their group. But I don't know of anyone that does that. But that is something that we use heavily as well at Penn State. We actually also share information on various Yammer pages we have, and also through news articles at Penn State and social media. We actually have Twitter and Facebook pages for Penn State. I know when something goes severely wrong that requires like an IT alert or outage record, depending on the issue, we'll actually send a tweet out about it and then have the other Penn State related pages reshare that tweet because, a lot of the students follow the various pages.
Yeah, for the target audience, there's definitely situations where, if it's students, for example, that are the primary folks we're trying to reach, pushing it out through social media is usually the way that our marketing comm folks do that, just because, they're not going to read email and, a number of other things. So yeah, we do send that out. On the ServiceNow SMS notifications, one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's possible this has changed since I was working, into the nitty gritty of it. I think ServiceNow's SMS notifications are still relying on an email to SMS gateway. So if there's an issue with email, the SMS notifications aren't going out either.
Yeah, don't you have to get like Twilio or some kind of other SMS service in order to be able to use not just the email like you mentioned, Mark, but like to actually use SMS?
It could be that that's why ours are tied to email. Maybe our ServiceNow team has just set things up just that way and haven't built in another service.
Kevin, do you know how ours is set up? Because I know you've been playing with it.
Yeah, ours uses the email gateway to go out. But we route everything through ServiceNow. We don't bring it back to our local email. So if we had a local email outage, it doesn't impact us. Obviously, if ServiceNow has an email outage, we're going to have an impact.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know originally we would have to use the email addresses, phone number at blah, blah, blah. But I think depending on how they sign up for the SMS, I don't believe email address is required, but I don't know that for 100%. I might have to verify that. So let me.
I know it gives the option of signing up, just putting in your phone number and carrier, but I think on the back end, it's just taking that information and building the email address for you.
Yeah, it does.
Could be.
This is one of those things where you say, just ask your local friendly sales rep, ServiceNow sales rep, right? Yeah, we use Twitter. We use an ITS alerts page. It's all static. We don't have any subscription-based services, any delineation about audience. Obviously, Twitter is more popular for our younger faculty and staff and our students. But it's something I think we're looking to go forward in the future, is creating an outage page, and people can subscribe to services. But question related to that is, if you could share who owns what communication piece, like for example, internally to our ITS leaders or to our local IT leaders, it's our OC that manages and sends out those communications. For anything like external or public facing, our communications group does all of the communication flow.
Yeah, for us, I can share. Like I said, I'm happy to send along the document with our major incident communication plan in it. But I guess one thing I'll need to do is take out everybody's cell phone numbers that are in it. But that does break down all of those stuff, Mitchell, as far as for this audience, it's this person or team that is responsible. For this audience, it's this role or team that's responsible, et cetera. So that's all broken down in there for between end users or internal IT staff or distributed IT community, the public, et cetera.
So I know here, our operations center are the ones that own the communication aspect. So they will be the ones that post like the IT alerts or outage records. And then based on that information, of course, those communications go out through those, email or SMS, depending on who signed up. If it's an issue that is too crazy, so to speak. So like the semester start when Zoom lost its mind, we actually did other communications as well. So our communications team got involved to do like the social media, Twitter aspect. They also did our news article because Penn State has an email newsletter. So they're involved to get that information out through there. Then we had our service managers even posting things on like Yammer pages and things like that. So I guess it would depend on the severity of the issue, depends on who all is involved in the communication process. But by default, it is the OC for us that runs with it.
I threw our huge unwieldy current process out there, but it does have a few things about communication. So I threw that into chat.
Yeah, I almost fell over when Terry said her major incident process was that one pager.
That makes me very excited. A one-page process is the best kind of process.
Yep. That's why my training job is very busy because I take our 15-page documents and try to break them down into digestible usable chunks.
Oh, this thing's going to be anti-human for me today. My apologies. I am losing here. Okay, there we go. Okay, are there any other things we want to discuss openly as a team here since we are together? We have about 17 minutes remaining of our meeting time.
Would somebody want to share, like maybe in more detail, like when there's a major incident, when is a post-implementation review required? How is that facilitated? How are we guaranteeing that we're following up on action items? I mean, there's a lot of things we can directions we can go in, but that's one subject that's come to my mind.
Well, does the major
I was thinking that too, Mitch. Sorry, Joyce, go ahead.
All right, does the major incident process in ServiceNow, is there a way to force it to require one before that major incident is fully closed? I'm just curious.
I won't lie, I don't know since we don't actually use the review aspect of ServiceNow. I know like at Penn State with as far as MIRs and things like that, we don't have a time limit on when we complete them. It's pretty much just as soon as possible. And depending, of course, on how many shenanigans occur, sometimes it'll take a few weeks. Other times it's within a couple days. It all depends. We actually track our post-action items through problem records right now, because then we can link it back to our incident record, our major incident record. And then that way, if someone asks, hey, what's the status on this? Well, we can look at the problem task that's assigned to whoever was doing the part to find out where they are, when their hopeful date's completion is, things like that. And then as far as actually closing, the actual closure of the major incident, I do that manually after creating the problem record for the post actions, as well as attaching the approved report to it and things like that. Because at Penn State, we don't use the actual MIR portion within ServiceNow. Our leadership likes something that's a little bit more user friendly than just like the comments and everything being listed. So it's something I actually write out manually and then get approved and whatnot before sending it out officially. So once that's all said and done, that's when I'll assign it, attach it as an attachment onto major incident record, make sure the problem's there, and then close the actual major incident record with the problem still active, of course. So we're a little bit different, I suppose, but it works at this point.
Yeah, so maybe this is a good idea. Like I think each of us have like a document that we use for whether we call it a PIR, MIR. If I get permission, I can share our major incident review template. Might be helpful to the group.
I know I can definitely share ours as well. It's something I created just to try to help out, gives steps and templates and things like that.
Well, our incident record, it has been kind of customized a little bit to include a major incident tab. It's got some very basic information like where its location, how many users, when did it start, when did it end, actuals versus when it was first reported, and then if there is if a major incident is declared, we have a process that says it's declared, but then it has to be verified by the major incident manager or by the OC or the service owner. And so then it only then could become like a P1 or P2. But then we're kind of considering when we move into problem, then requiring that major incident review to be added as part of the problem record. And that's why we've kind of shot down making that a requirement as far as using the major incident record or using our modified incident record to complete a major incident review. So it's separate, it's part of the process, but it's not tied into the tool. But we're waiting for problem record problem application to roll out that functionality. Something a colleague shared with me about how they handle major incidents, and I don't know if this will be useful for the group or maybe it'll spur some questions based on their response. So they have kind of he had a funny way of phrasing it. I forgot exactly how he phrased it, but basically it was a period of time where if the major incident can be resolved by a quick, for example, reboot of a server, right? Or pinging of a switch, right? If they can do that, the tier 3 teams can do that within a given period of time. I think he said maybe an hour. So, a tier 3 person says, you know what, I can resolve this incident by rebooting a switch, then no communication sent out. So I guess it leads to a question of what is your threshold? And we kind of touched on it, but what is your threshold for when you need to declare a major incident and do all of the reporting out of it?
So typically, we declare a major incident as soon as we've determined that like I mentioned early on, there's that problem period where we're trying to figure out what the scope is and truly understand the impact. But once we've confirmed that the impact is such that it should be a major incident, then we declare a major incident at that point, unless the issue has been resolved while we're figuring that out. If in the process of figuring it out and getting the right people lined up, it's like, oh, it's resolved now, well, then we don't, kick off the whole major incident process, just to let people know, hey, for the past 20 minutes, this was happening, but it's fixed now. We'll still put up an outage record after the fact and stuff like that, but we don't do the whole major incident process at that point.
Yeah, kind of like resolve a major incident, but resolved before anybody noticed. Kind of just communication.
Yeah, it doesn't, on our side, if it was resolved before, and well, people certainly noticed, but if it was resolved before we were able to kick off the full process, before we were able to confirm things, then we usually just will leave it not marked as a P1 major incident and just resolve it at that point.
Yeah, because the risk I think we're just alluding to is that some customers will notice. And so what do we do? How do we handle that if we don't say anything and someone's like, well, you say you have a uptime of 99, whatever, but we've experienced so many outages and you never told us about it, right? So.
Yeah, maybe it's just the process. Like I said, we do still communicate that. We would still have a note up on our status page saying that there was an outage from X time to X time, but we would not kick off the whole major incident process or conduct a PIR unless requested, because we'll do PIRs for non-major incidents, as long as it's impacting enough people, but only by request. We'll do a PIR for every major incident automatically as a part of our process. But if somebody wants a PIR for a P2 or a P3 incident because they felt it was, a big enough of an impact or big enough of an issue or just a weird, complicated thing, we'll hold that process for those as well.
Yeah, now you're getting into the territory of problem management, right?
Well, it's a piece of our problem management. I mean, the PIR kind of lives more on the problem management side of things than the major incident side of things for us, to the point where, like I said, we even use that RCA module for it instead of something that's more incident directed.
I think that's an important distinction too, right? The goal of a PIR is to prevent incidents, to learn from that and prevent them from happening again, right? And that's really in the territory of problem management.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to interrupt the discussion there, so I was just putting Penn State's information in there. Our threshold is pretty much, if there's over 100 users, whether they're student, faculty, staff, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many campuses. If it's over 100 and it's for a business critical service that has been already predetermined and listed out in our playbook, it's counting as a major incident. If it's completely out, of course, it's an outage. If it's not completely out, then it'd just be a degradation. But then for services that aren't considered vital, so I know earlier, elevator music was mentioned, we would, do, so there's different kinds of alerts we have. We would do a disruption type of an alert, which is, we don't require a major incident review for, but it still lets our users know, like, hey, this is not functioning properly. We're aware, just so you know, but it wouldn't require the whole MIR process.
I have a question for these thresholds. Who determined, or I guess by what process did you determine your thresholds? That seems to be an issue that we have at Virginia Tech, and part of that issue is because a service like Wireless, which supports tens of thousands of people, and a service like Banner, which has thousands of users, they just have different thresholds in our mind for what we would consider major. How did y'all go about setting those thresholds?
I'll jump in at Ohio State. For us, it's a part of our service design process, honestly. So when we're putting a service through service design, one of the things that I talk about, I'm involved in that process as the major incident owner, and I talk about, well, what degrees of this outage are considered important, and a lot of times it's communication with the support teams. So if they're just designing a service, they may not even understand the user impact fully yet. So it's a matter of, if this goes down at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, are you going to respond, or are you going to tell us to wait till Monday? Because that tells me what priority that incident's going to be. If you feel like a total outage isn't going to warrant your response until the next business day, it's never going to be a major incident, in my opinion. And so, it's attached to our prioritization matrix. We've got, it looked very, very similar to Tori's, that I think it was Tori had to leave. Our major incident priority matrix looks very, very similar to the one she shared. Looks very similar to the cool little graphic that Mitchell shared, although without the exact number thresholds that are in Mitchell's graphic. And it's just talking through those impacts. And at the end of the day, the one thing that's not directly represented in the impact and urgency priority matrix well, it is, but it's kind of an asterisk, is, and it must be one of these mission critical services. So it has to be a total or significant outage of one of these mission critical services. And that's what we would consider a major incident. And that's why, I mentioned we may have a higher threshold for the full major incident process than some of you all, based on what I'm hearing.
I just sent a draft of one of the 2 drafts that we were considering using. We call it an after action review, but I just sent the template that we were working on in case anyone's interested. In chat.
I was gonna say, I'll add that into our notes here after this page then. That way everything will be included when I email this out to everybody.
I just want to compliment on Max your the approach for defining some of those threshold support hours, service hours, really are helpful to get that conversation early in the design of the service, right? Your service level agreements, right? If you've got request items, the targets for each of those types of request items, that's important conversation to have with the business owners and the project team, whether it's a new service or a modified service. And frankly, when we're trying to retire our services, because not everything is going to be treated equally. The priority matrix is very universally applied, but there's differences between like a grant that needs to be submitted that someone can't, that's worth $50 million, although it may be impacting one person, right? Versus like a campus-wide network outage. The urgency really is about how long can this thing be down before it really starts to hurt us. And that has to be kind of discussed about that particular service and the business use of that service.
Absolutely. And, in a couple of our more unusual major incidents that we've had recently, urgency has played a factor in that. The urgency has changed over time. One of the things that we weigh into that urgency is how far from the deadline are we? And so, for example, this particular issue was around our ability to send mail outside of the university. We had an issue with our SMTP security systems at the wall that were basically preventing mail from leaving Ohio State. That's a big deal. But as long as the mail's queuing up, if it's resolved in like an hour, isn't really a major incident, because email is not a immediate, this isn't going to work right now if you can't send this email right now. And mail was still coming in. But as some time passed, that absolutely became a major incident because it was becoming more and more disruptive to the university.
Okay, folks, there are 2 minutes remaining before our meeting time scheduled here is over. Is there anything else we want to touch base on, or are we okay with where we're sitting today? Do we want to schedule another discussion point, later at time here so we can continue, or are we all okay where we're sitting currently?
I'm great. I'm good. This has been really great and wonderful. Good conversation. Thanks for putting this together, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Okay, so then my game plan is going to be, I'm going to get the image that was shared as well as the document that Joyce shared attached into the notes here. Once the video finishes processing, since I was recording it, I'll also grab that and I will get this emailed out to everybody. And then I'll also upload it into the Google Sites that was mentioned earlier. That way everything is somewhere that people can find it.
Well, go ahead and send that to me because it's restricted access. So if you include all this stuff in the email, I'll make sure that it gets onto the site. And if anybody does want to follow up with some of the artifacts that we talked about, go ahead and send that to the group, and I'll make sure I also include those in the upload.
That's awesome, Mitch. Thank you. And thank you again, everyone, for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day. Folks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.